Ambassador Park Min-jae walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council station. Her small team followed behind her, their shoes clicking on the smooth metal floors. They had come here for simple trade talks, nothing special. Earth wanted to buy some mining equipment. The Council wanted human agricultural technology. Easy business. Park was tired. The meetings had gone on for 3 days already. She just wanted to finish the paperwork and go home. Her assistant, James, carried a stack of documents under his arm. Dr. Sarah Chen, their medical advisor, walked beside them, checking her data pad. "We should finish tomorrow," James said. "Then we can finally leave this place." "All," Park nodded. The council station was impressive but cold. Everything was efficient and clean, but it felt empty somehow, like a hospital that forgot to care about its patients. They turned a corner and almost walked into a group of council delegates. The aliens were standing in a circle, speaking in low voices. Park recognized them. The tall, gray-skinned Zinthak, the floating, jellyfish-like HFY, the reptilian Korthan, with their sharp teeth. Park tried to walk past them quietly, but her translator device caught their words. She stopped moving. "The vote is final," one of the Zinthak was saying. 47 species agreed. Only 3 voted against. "What about the children?" a Korthan asked. "What about them? They consume resources. They produce nothing." The math is simple. Park felt something cold in her stomach. She touched James's arm and pointed to her translator. He frowned and adjusted his own device to listen. 10,000 orphans, the HFY delegate said, its voice bubbling through its translation unit. The epidemic killed everyone on that colony. Only the young ones survived. IVC. When RIVC HZ. IVC. Tarsus 9 was always a weak settlement. The Zinthak replied. The Velkan species tried to expand too quickly. Now they pay the price. "So we kill the children?" The Korthan sounded uncertain. "We provide a merciful end. Quick and painless. Better than letting them suffer in shelters with no future. No family. No purpose. The resources we save can help millions of others." Park's hands began to shake. She looked at James and Sarah. Both of them had gone pale. They had heard everything. "They can't be serious," Sarah whispered. But they were serious. Over the next hour, Park and her team learned the full truth. The Velkan colony on outpost Tarsus 9 had been hit by a terrible disease 6 months ago. It killed every adult on the planet. 10,000 children survived, ranging from babies to teenagers. The Galactic Council had taken them to emergency shelters. Now, the Council had voted. The children would be euthanized in 30 days. It was considered the practical solution to an expensive problem. The Council had done this before with other situations. It was standard procedure. Park couldn't breathe properly. She sat down in an empty conference room while James pulled up the official records. There it was, in cold official language. Resolution 8,847 C. Approved for implementation. Execution, scheduled for 30 days from now. "They're going to murder 10,000 children," Sarah said. Her voice was flat, like she couldn't believe what she was reading. "They don't see it as murder," James said. "Look at the debate records. They talk about resource allocation, economic impact, statistical analysis, but never once do they mention that these are children. Living, breathing children who did nothing wrong except survive." Park stood up. Her mind was racing. She thought about her own daughter back on Earth. She thought about every child she had ever met. She couldn't let this happen. "Get me an emergency meeting with the Council," Park said. "On what grounds?" James asked. "Tell them we have a proposal about the Tarsus 9 situation." James made the call. An hour later, they stood in the massive council chamber. Hundreds of alien species sat in tiered seats rising up around them. At the center sat Thexvar, the council leader. His species looked like tall insects with too many eyes. Ambassador Park, Dexvar said. You requested this emergency session. You have 5 minutes. Speak. Park walked to the center of the chamber. Every eye in the room watched her. She felt small and alone. But she thought about those children waiting in shelters, not knowing they had been sentenced to death. I learned today that this council has voted to euthanize 10,000 Velkan orphans from Tarsus 9, Park began. Her voice echoed in the huge room. That matter is settled, Thexvar said. If you wish to file a formal objection, there are procedures. I'm not filing an objection, Park said. I'm making an offer. Humanity will take them. Silence. Complete silence. Then, somewhere in the upper tiers, someone laughed. Then another. Soon, half the chamber was making sounds of amusement. Take them? Thexvar asked. You wish to take custody of 10,000 alien children? All of them, Park said firmly. Every single one. Ambassador. Do you understand the scope of what you're saying? These are not human children. They have different biology, different psychology, different needs. They require specialized care, specialized education. Your species doesn't even have the transport ships to move them. We'll find a way, Park said. More laughter. A Zinthak delegate stood up. Humanity has been in council space for less than 20 years. You are a minor species with limited resources. This is an impossible task you're proposing. Maybe, Park agreed. But we're going to try anyway. Why? Thexvar leaned forward. These children offer you nothing. No strategic value. No economic benefit. Why would you waste your resources on them? Park looked up at all the alien faces staring down at her. She thought about how to explain something that should be obvious. How to tell them that some things matter more than money or strategy. Because they're children, she said simply. And they deserve to live. That's reason enough. The chamber fell quiet again. But this time, no one was laughing. Thexvar studied the human ambassador for a long moment. Very well, he said finally. Humanity has 90 days to demonstrate capability to care for these orphans. If you fail, the original resolution stands. We will not debate this further. Dismissed. Park walked out of the chamber. James and Sarah rushed to catch up with her. Do you realize what you just committed us to? James asked. Yes, Park said. She was already composing the message she would send to Earth. Now, let's figure out how to save 10,000 lives. The message from Ambassador Park reached Earth within hours. It spread through every news network, every social media platform, every government channel. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. In Seoul, a retired teacher named Kim Sung-ho read the news with his wife. They looked at each other without speaking. Their own grandchildren had died in an accident 3 years ago. The pain was still fresh. Kim picked up his phone and registered as a foster family before his wife could say anything. She nodded and held his hand. In New York, Dr. Sarah's colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, watched the footage of the Velkan children. They looked humanoid, but with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. One little girl was crying in the corner of a shelter. Marcus had spent 15 years studying xenobiology. He sent his application to join the medical team that same night. In Mumbai, a construction engineer named Priya Sharma saw that humanity needed to convert orbital stations into homes for the children. She had 2 young sons and a busy career. She told her husband she was volunteering anyway. He said he would come too and bring the boys. They could learn something important. Within 48 hours, 80,000 human families had registered to adopt or foster. The number kept growing. The Earth government was shocked. They had expected maybe a few hundred volunteers. They got hundreds of thousands. The United Earth Council held an emergency session. Representatives argued about the cost, about the logistics, about whether this was even possible. Then a young representative from Brazil stood up. We're arguing about money while children wait to die, she said. The people have already decided. They want to help. Our job is to figure out how, not whether. The vote passed. Earth would commit 4% of its annual budget for the next decade to the Tarsus 9 rescue operation. It was the largest humanitarian mission in human history. Back on the council station, Park worked without sleeping. She coordinated with engineers, doctors, teachers, and logistics experts across 3 planets. The challenges were enormous. The Velkan children needed different air composition than humans. They processed proteins differently. Their sleep cycles were longer. Their emotional development followed different patterns, and humanity had exactly 90 days to learn everything and put it into practice. "We need ships," Park told Captain Lee Dong-woo over a video call. "Big ones. Can you help?" Lee was a cargo ship captain who had spent 30 years in space. He looked at the specifications Park sent him. 3 converted cargo vessels, retrofitted to carry children safely. Each one would need medical facilities, sleeping quarters, play areas, and educational spaces. "It's going to be ugly," Lee said. "We don't have time to make it pretty." "I don't care if it's ugly," Park replied. "I care if it works." Lee gathered his crew. They were rough people, used to hauling metal and machinery across empty space. Instead, a young crew member named Maria spoke up. "My sister has 3 kids," Maria said. "If something happened to her, I'd want someone to help them. Let's do this." The crew worked around the clock. They tore out cargo holds and installed smaller rooms. They built medical bays from scratch. They painted the corridors in bright colors because someone said children like colors. None of them had ever done anything like this before. On Earth, training centers opened in every major city. Families who wanted to adopt Velkan children had to learn about their biology and culture. Dr. Chen led the medical training while xenopsychologists taught about Velkan emotional needs. The Kim family attended classes in Seoul. They learned that Velkan children needed 20% more water than human children. That they communicated through subtle hand gestures, as well as words. That they formed attachments slowly but deeply. "It's like raising a child all over again," Mrs. Kim said to her husband. "Except, everything is different." "Not everything," Mr. Kim replied. "Love is the same in any language." The Galactic Council watched these preparations with confusion. They sent observers to document humanity's efforts. The observers reported back with detailed analyses. "The humans are spending enormous resources," one Zinthak observer wrote. "They have commissioned 3 emergency transport vessels at great cost. They have converted orbital stations meant for industrial use. Thousands of their medical professionals have abandoned lucrative careers to volunteer. The economic impact on their civilization will be significant." End quote. "Do they understand this?" the council asked. "Yes," the observer replied. "They know exactly what it costs. They don't care." This answer troubled the council. Species were supposed to act in their own interest. That was the foundation of galactic civilization. Trade, alliances, treaties. Everything was based on mutual benefit. What humans were doing made no sense in that framework. The HFY delegate filed a formal protest. "Humanity is being reckless," the document stated. "When they realize the true burden of caring for these children, they will abandon the project. Then what happens to the orphans? Better to proceed with the original plan." But humanity kept working. By day 30, the first transport ship was ready. Captain Lee named it the Hope. His crew had transformed the ugly cargo vessel into something that could carry precious lives. They had installed safety systems that exceeded council standards. They had created small gardens where children could play. They had even learned to cook Velkan food. "We're ready," Lee reported to Park. "Send us the first group." Park traveled to Tarsus 9 with Dr. Chen. The shelters there were clean but cold. Council caretakers managed the children efficiently, but without warmth. The children sat in neat rows, quiet and obedient. Dr. Chen knelt beside a young boy who looked about 6 years old. His name was Kess. He had large, sad eyes and wouldn't speak to anyone. "Hello, Kess," Dr. Chen said softly, using the Velkan greeting gesture. "Would you like to come with us? We're going to take you somewhere safe." Kes stared at her but didn't respond. He hadn't spoken since the day his parents died. The loading process took 3 days. Human volunteers moved through the shelters, gently guiding children onto the ships. Many of the children were frightened. Some cried. Some fought. The council caretakers seemed relieved to be rid of them. Captain Lee walked through his ship, checking on every child. In one corner, he found Kes sitting alone, refusing to eat. Maria, the young crew member, sat down next to him. "I know you're scared," Maria said. "Everything is strange and different. But you're safe now. I promise." Kes didn't respond. For 16 hours, Maria sat with him. She didn't force him to eat or talk. She just stayed nearby, letting him know he wasn't alone. Finally, she started humming a song her mother used to sing to her. A simple lullaby. Soft and gentle. Kes turned his head slightly. Maria kept humming. Slowly, carefully, Kes moved closer to her. By hour 17, he was leaning against her shoulder. By hour 18, he was eating small bites of food she offered. He still didn't speak, but his eyes looked a little less empty. The Hope left Tarsus 9 with the first 3,000 children. 2 more ships followed over the next month with the remaining 7,000. Every child was accounted for. Every child was safe. The galaxy watched the transport ships travel toward human space. News feeds showed footage of human volunteers caring for frightened alien children, of crew members learning Velkan lullabies, of doctors working through exhaustion to treat every illness and injury. Ambassador Park sent her daily report to the council. Day 60, she wrote. All children successfully evacuated from Tarsus 9. Medical status stable. Psychological support ongoing. We're bringing them home. The word home echoed across the council chambers. It was a strange word for the children to hear. They had lost their home, their world, their families, but humanity was offering them something new. Not a replacement for what they had lost, but a place where they could heal and grow. The ships approached Luna Station, where thousands of human families waited in the arrival bay. They held signs, written in Velkan script, signs that said, "Welcome, and you're safe now, and we love you." The children stepped off the ships into a sea of open arms. And slowly, carefully, they began to believe that maybe they would be okay after all. The arrival bay at Luna Station was packed with people. Families pressed against the barriers, craning their necks to see the ships dock. Many held small gifts, toys, flowers, handmade welcome signs. The atmosphere was electric, with nervous excitement. Kim Sung-ho and his wife stood near the front. They had been matched with a young Velkan boy named Kes. They had seen his photo and read his file. 6 years old. Hadn't spoken since his parents died. Refused to eat most of the time. The matching service had warned them he would be difficult. "Are you sure about this?" Mrs. Kim asked her husband for the 10th time. "No," Mr. Kim admitted. "But when have we ever been sure about anything important?" The airlock doors opened. Children began emerging with their human escorts. Some walked confidently. Others held tightly to the hands of crew members. Many looked overwhelmed by the crowd of waiting humans. Maria came through the doors with Kes at her side. The boy was small for his age, with pale blue skin and those enormous dark eyes. He clutched Maria's sleeve and pressed against her leg. The Kims approached slowly. Maria knelt down and spoke softly to Kes in a mix of English and basic Velkan. "These are the Kims," Maria said. "They're going to take care of you now. I told you about them, remember? Mr. Kim likes to garden. Mrs. Kim makes the best soup in Seoul." Kes looked at the elderly couple. Mr. Kim made the Velkan greeting gesture, the one he had practiced hundreds of times in training. "Missus." Kim smiled gently and held out a small stuffed animal, a rabbit, soft and gray. Kes stared at the rabbit. He didn't take it. Mrs. Kim set it down on the ground between them and stepped back, giving him space. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, very slowly, Kes reached out and picked up the rabbit. He held it against his chest. "Good start," Maria said, blinking back tears. She hugged Kes one more time. "You're going to be okay, little one. I promise." Scenes like this repeated throughout the arrival bay. 3,000 children meeting their new families for the first time. Some meetings went smoothly. Others were harder. A teenage Velkin girl screamed that she wanted her real parents back. A small boy bit the hand of his new foster mother. Two siblings refused to be separated even though they had been placed with different families. Human volunteers adapted quickly. The families were switched so the siblings could stay together. The teenage girl was paired with a grief counselor who had also lost her parents young. The little boy who bit was given time and space to calm down, while his foster mother wrapped her hand and waited patiently. By the end of the day, all 3,000 children from the first ship had gone home with families. The process would repeat twice more as the other ships arrived. Across human civilization, families began the hard work of integration. The Kims took Kes to their small apartment in Seoul. They had converted their spare room into a bedroom for him, following all the guidelines: proper air filtration, adjusted lighting, a bed designed for Velkin sleep patterns. Kes stood in the doorway of his new room and didn't move. Mr. Kim didn't push him. Instead, the old man sat down on the floor in the hallway. "You can come out whenever you're ready," Mr. Kim said. "We'll be right here." Kes stepped into the room and closed the door. He stayed there for 6 hours. The Kims waited. Around dinner time, the door opened a crack. Kes peeked out. Mrs. Kim had made a simple meal based on Velkin nutritional needs. She placed a bowl outside his door and walked away. 20 minutes later, the bowl was empty. It was a small victory. One of thousands happening across Earth, Luna, and Mars. In Mumbai, Priya Sharma's 2 sons were teaching their new Velkin sister how to play cricket. She didn't understand the rules and kept trying to catch the ball with her feet, which made the boys laugh. But she was laughing too, which was progress. In New York, Dr. Webb worked at the pediatric center that had been established specifically for Velkin children. Some needed surgery. Others needed medication for conditions human doctors had never seen before. The medical staff learned by doing, making mistakes and fixing them, always trying to help. The Galactic Council received daily reports about humanity's progress. The numbers were impressive. 97% placement success. Medical complications being managed effectively. Educational integration, beginning ahead of schedule. But the Council still didn't understand. They sent more observers to watch and document. A young Zinthak, named Vex Nil, was assigned to follow several families and write detailed reports. Vex Nil visited the Kim household in Seoul. He watched Mr. Kim sit outside Kes's room every evening, just being present. He observed Mrs. Kim learning to cook foods she had never heard of before. He recorded the moment when Kes finally spoke his first word, after 2 weeks a quiet thank you in Velkin, when Mrs. Kim brought him breakfast. "Why do you do this?" Vexnil asked the Kims. "This child is not your species. Not your responsibility. He may never fully adapt to human society. You are elderly and could be enjoying peaceful retirement. Why accept this burden?" Mrs. Kim looked at the alien observer with tired eyes. "Do you have children, Vexnil? My species reproduces differently. We do not form parental attachments." "Then maybe you can't understand," Mrs. Kim said. "When we lost our grandchildren, we thought the pain would never end. Kes didn't replace them. Nothing could. But when we help him, when we see him smile for the first time, when he takes one small step forward, we remember what it means to hope. He needs us. And maybe we need him too." Vexnil included this conversation in his report but added a note that he didn't fully comprehend the emotional reasoning. Not all observers were so confused. A Korthan named Skelvar watched a school integration program in London. Human children and Velkin children learning together. The human kids asked questions about Velkan culture. The Velkan kids taught them hand gestures and songs. When one Velkan boy was bullied by an older human kid, 3 of his human classmates immediately defended him and got the bully punished. Skelvar had been a teacher before becoming a council observer. He knew what good teaching looked like. What he saw in that London classroom was exceptional. The human teacher treated all the children exactly the same with patience, kindness, and high expectations. "How do you make this work?" Skelvar asked the teacher. "Same way you make anything work with kids," the teacher replied. "You show them love is bigger than difference. You teach them that everyone deserves respect. And you never, ever give up on them, no matter how hard it gets." Skelvar's report was different from the others. He wrote that humanity wasn't just completing a task. They were teaching a philosophy through action. And that philosophy was spreading. By day 80, all 10,000 Velkan children were placed in permanent homes. Medical success rates exceeded council standards. Psychological evaluations showed most children were forming healthy attachments. Educational programs were working better than expected. Ambassador Park compiled the final report. She included statistics, medical data, psychological assessments, and photographic evidence. But she also included something else: letters written by the children themselves. Kes had written 3 sentences in shaky handwriting. "Mr. and Mrs. Kim are kind. They wait for me. I am starting to feel safe." A teenage girl wrote about her foster mother, who helped her cry about her lost parents instead of telling her to be strong. A small boy drew a picture of his new family, 2 human adults, and himself in the middle, all holding hands. Park sent the report to the council with a simple cover message. Day 90. Mission accomplished. All children safe, healthy, and beginning to thrive. Humanity requests no further extension of timeline. We have done what we said we would do. The council chamber received the report in silence. They reviewed every page, every statistic, every photo. They watched video footage of children playing in human homes, of teenagers laughing at dinner tables, of families learning Velkan traditions to preserve the children's heritage. Thexvar read Kes's letter 3 times. He stared at the shaky handwriting for a long time. "They actually did it," a HFY delegate said, sounding shocked. "Against all probability, they succeeded." "Not just succeeded," Skelvar said quietly. "They thrived. Both species. Together." Another delegate stood. "We should acknowledge this achievement. Humanity has demonstrated capability beyond our expectations." But Park's message had included one more paragraph. "Humanity thanks the Council for this opportunity to save innocent lives. However, we must decline our pending application for full Council membership. We have concluded that the Galactic Council has lost sight of what civilization truly means. We cannot join an organization that votes to kill children because saving them is expensive. We will maintain trade relationships and diplomatic contact, but we will not be part of a civilization that measures lives in cost-benefit analysis. Perhaps one day you will remember what you have forgotten. Until then, humanity chooses a different path." The chamber exploded into argument. Some delegates were outraged. Others were defensive. A few were thoughtful and quiet. Thexvar sat motionless at the center of it all, still holding the report with Kes's letter visible on the screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he didn't have a name for, something uncomfortable and challenging: shame. The rejection from humanity spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. News networks broadcast Park's statement on every channel. Social media platforms exploded with debate. For the first time in generations, the Galactic Council faced serious criticism from within its own civilization. Young members of established species began asking uncomfortable questions. Why had euthanasia been the first option? Why had no other species offered to help? What did it say about galactic civilization that only the newest member had considered saving the children? On the Zinthak homeworld, a student movement formed. They called themselves the New Path Coalition. They demanded their government review all past euthanasia votes and explain the reasoning behind each one. Our parents tell us this is how civilization works, a young Zinthak activist said in a viral video. But humanity showed us a different way. If we're so advanced, why didn't we think of it first? The Zinthak government tried to suppress the movement, but it was too late. The questions had been asked. The doubt had been planted. Similar movements appeared across council space. The HFY species split into two factions. The traditionalists insisted the euthanasia vote had been correct and logical. The reformers argued that logic without compassion was just mathematics, not morality. We have calculated our way into becoming monsters, a HFY reformer wrote. We need to remember how to be people. The Corthan government issued a formal apology. They admitted the Tarsus 9 vote had been wrong. They changed their laws to prohibit future euthanasia of dependent populations. It was a small step, but it was something. Ambassador Park watched all of this from Earth. She had expected anger from the Council, maybe sanctions or trade restrictions. She hadn't expected the galactic soul-searching that her rejection had triggered. You started something, James told her. People are questioning everything now. Good, Park said. They should question. We all should. The moment we stop questioning our choices is the moment we lose our way. But not everyone was pleased with the changes. Conservative factions across the galaxy pushed back hard. They argued that humanity's emotional decision-making was dangerous, that sacrificing resources for non-productive individuals would weaken civilization. That the Council had voted correctly based on available data. A powerful Zinthak senator, named Kex Thol, gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. Humanity got lucky, he said. Their gamble paid off this time. But emotion-based governance is unstable. Next time, they might fail. And then what? We cannot base galactic policy on feelings. The speech gained support among older, established powers. A counter-movement formed, defending the Council's original decision. The galaxy divided, not over territory or resources, but over philosophy. What was civilization for? Was it about efficient resource management and logical outcomes? Or was it about something harder to measure: dignity, compassion, moral courage? Skelvar, the Corthan observer who had visited the London school, wrote an article that went viral. He described watching human children defend their Velkan classmate from a bully. He talked about the teacher who treated all students with equal respect. I have seen the future, Skelvar wrote. It is not in council chambers or statistical reports. It is in a classroom where different species learn together, where a human child tells a Velkan child, "You're my friend, and nobody hurts my friend." That is civilization. That is what we forgot. The article reached billions. Young people across the galaxy shared it, discussed it, argued about it. Some said Skelvar was naive. Others said he was brave for telling the truth. On Earth, the 10,000 Velkan children continued growing. They weren't a political statement or a philosophical debate. They were just children living their lives. Kes started speaking more. He told the Kims about his parents, about the day they died, about how scared he had been. Mr. Kim listened to every word and never told him to stop being sad. Mrs. Kim held him when he cried and taught him that grief was okay, that remembering was okay. In Mumbai, Priya Sharma's Velkan daughter asked if she could invite her Velkan friends over. Soon, 5 Velkan children were running through the apartment, playing games and eating snacks. They spoke in their native language, maintaining their culture while building new lives. In New York, Dr. Webb watched a Velkan teenager recover from complex surgery. The girl's human parents stayed by her bedside for 3 days straight. When she finally woke up, the first thing she saw was her foster mother's tired but smiling face. "You're okay, sweetie," the foster mother said. "We've got you." The girl reached for her hand and didn't let go. These stories spread too. Not as dramatic as political debates or philosophical arguments, but in their own way, more powerful. They were proof that what humanity had done wasn't just possible, it was working. A year after the Tarsus 9 evacuation, the Galactic Council held a special session. The topic was re-evaluating standards for dependent population management. It was a bureaucratic way of saying they were reconsidering the euthanasia policies. Ambassador Park was invited to speak. She almost declined, but James convinced her to go. "They're ready to listen now," James said. "Maybe they weren't before." Park returned to the council chamber. It looked the same as the day she had made her impossible promise. But the atmosphere was different. The delegates weren't laughing or dismissive. They were nervous. HFY gave Park the floor. She walked to the center and looked around at all the alien faces watching her. "A year ago, I stood here and offered to take 10,000 children you had voted to kill," Park began. "You laughed. You called it impossible. You said we didn't understand what we were committing to." Park paused and pulled up a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above her. Kes eating breakfast with the Kims, Priya's daughter playing cricket, the New York teenager holding her foster mother's hand. "You were right," Park continued. "We didn't fully understand. It was harder than we expected. More expensive. More complicated. We made mistakes. We struggled. Some days, we wondered if we could actually do it." More images appeared. Human families learning Velkan customs. Doctors studying alien physiology late into the night. Teachers creating new curricula. Engineers building specialized equipment. "But we did it anyway," Park said. "Not because it was easy or profitable or strategically valuable. We did it because it was right. And that's the difference between us and the civilization I see in this chamber." The room was completely silent. "You have mastered space travel," Park said. "You've built incredible technology. You've created vast trade networks and complex political systems, but somewhere along the way, you forgot the simplest truth. Civilization isn't measured by what you build. It's measured by how you treat those who can't build anything for you." Park gestured to the images still floating in the air. "Those 10,000 children, they're not going to pay us back. Most of them will live ordinary lives. Some will struggle with trauma forever. They won't cure diseases, or invent new technology, or make us rich. But they will live. They will laugh. They will love. They will have a chance. And that is enough." She turned to face HFY directly. "We declined council membership because we couldn't be part of a civilization that calculates which lives are worth saving. But we hope you'll change. We hope you'll remember what you've forgotten. Because the galaxy needs to be better than this." Park started to leave, but HFY spoke. "Wait." She stopped. "You're right," HFY said slowly. The words seemed hard for him. "The council was wrong. I was wrong. We made the efficient choice, the logical choice, the economically sound choice. But we made the wrong choice." Other delegates began speaking. Some agreed. Some argued. But the debate was different now. They weren't defending the euthanasia vote. They were discussing how to prevent it from happening again. The HFY delegate who had originally proposed the Tarsus 9 resolution spoke. "I calculated costs and benefits. I measured resources against outcomes. But I never asked the only question that mattered: what kind of civilization kills children because saving them is expensive?" The debate continued for hours. By the end, the council had voted on 3 major reforms. First, euthanasia of dependent populations would require unanimous consent, not simple majority. Second, all member species must exhaust every alternative before considering such measures. Third, a new organization would be formed to coordinate rescue efforts for situations like Tarsus 9. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything Park had hoped for. But it was a start. As Park left the chamber, Skelvar approached her. "You changed the galaxy," he said. "No," Park replied. 10,000 children changed the galaxy. We just gave them the chance to do it." Back on Earth, Kes was learning to ride a bicycle in the park near the Kim's apartment. He fell down several times, but kept trying. Mr. Kim ran alongside, ready to catch him if needed. Finally, Kes found his balance. He pedaled faster, laughing with pure joy. Mrs. Kim took a photo and sent it to Maria, the crew member who had first sat with him on the Hope. Maria saved the photo to her personal collection. She had hundreds of similar photos now, sent by families of children she had helped transport. Children who were alive, growing, learning to be happy again. The galaxy was changing, slowly but surely. And it all started because humanity said 3 simple words: "We'll take them." 20 years passed. Kes stood at a university podium in New Seoul, adjusting his presentation notes. The auditorium was packed with students from dozens of species. Some were human. Some were Velkin. Many were species that had once voted to kill him. "Good afternoon," Kes said in clear, confident galactic standard. "My name is Kes Kim, and I'm here to talk about cross-cultural integration and the meaning of civilization." He clicked a button, and an old photo appeared on the screen behind him. A small, frightened Velkin boy, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "This was me 20 years ago," Kes said. "The day I met my grandparents." The audience was silent, listening carefully. Kes told them his story, about losing his parents to the epidemic, about the shelters on Tarsus 9, about the day he learned the galaxy had voted to end his life. He told them about Maria sitting with him for 16 hours, about Mr. and Mrs. Kim waiting patiently outside his bedroom door, about learning that love could exist between different species. "I was one of 10,000 orphans that humanity chose to save," Kes said. "Not because we were valuable, not because we could offer them anything in return, but because they believed every life deserved a chance. That simple belief changed everything." In the front row, Mr. Kim sat next to his great-granddaughter. She was 4 years old, half human and half Velkin. Kes's daughter. She was drawing pictures in a notebook, not really understanding the speech but happy to be there. Mrs. Kim had passed away 3 years earlier. She had lived to see Kes graduate, get married, and hold his newborn daughter. She had died peacefully, surrounded by family, both the ones she was born into and the one she chose. Kes continued his lecture, explaining how the Tarsus 9 rescue had created ripple effects across the galaxy. The reform movements, the new laws, the coalition for sentient dignity that had formed from the ashes of the old council. 20 years ago, the galaxy measured civilization by technological achievement and economic efficiency, Kes said. Today, we measure it differently. We ask, how do you treat those who cannot help you? How do you respond when saving lives is expensive and difficult? Do you choose the easy path or the right path? A young Xinthac student raised her hand. But doesn't this create inefficiency? Resources are limited. How do you decide who to help if you can't use logical calculation? Kes smiled. He had been asked this question many times. Resources are limited. Yes. But compassion isn't. The humans who saved us didn't have unlimited wealth. Many families struggled financially after adopting Velkin children, but they made it work because they believed we mattered. Sometimes the logical choice isn't the right choice. Sometimes you have to choose based on values instead of mathematics. After the lecture, students crowded around Kes with questions. He answered each one patiently, the way his grandparents had taught him. Eventually, the crowd thinned, and Mr. Kim approached with Kes's daughter. "Your grandmother would be proud," Mr. Kim said in Korean. He was 92 now, moving slowly but still sharp. "I learned from the best," Kes replied, also in Korean. He spoke 4 languages fluently: Velkin, Korean, English, and Galactic Standard. They walked together through the university campus. The grounds were beautiful, with gardens designed to accommodate multiple species' aesthetic preferences. Human cherry blossoms grew next to Velkin crystalline trees. The campus was a physical representation of the new galactic philosophy. "Do you ever think about what your life would have been if the council's vote had stood?" Mr. Kim asked. Kes was quiet for a moment, watching his daughter chase butterflies through the grass. "Sometimes," he admitted. But then I think about everything I would have missed. You and Grandma, my wife, my daughter, my work, all the people I've met and helped. That vote would have ended all of this before it began. And now you help others, Mr. Kim said with pride. Kes worked as a xenocultural liaison, helping new species integrate into galactic society. He specialized in assisting refugees and orphans, using his own experience to guide others through trauma and adjustment. His team had helped thousands over the years. The following week, Kes traveled to Tarsus 9. The planet had been abandoned after the epidemic, left as a memorial. Once a year, survivors and their families visited to remember. The memorial was a simple structure built near the old colony center. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the epidemic, over 50,000 adults, including Kes's parents. Beside the memorial was a newer structure added 10 years ago. It listed the names of the 10,000 children who survived, with a simple inscription. They voted to end these lives. Humanity said, "We'll take them all." This is what civilization looks like. Kes placed flowers at his parents' names, as he did every year. His wife stood beside him, holding their daughter's hand. Other families moved through the memorial, some crying, some praying, some just sitting in silence. An elderly human woman approached Kes. She was using a walking stick and moved slowly. "Kes Kim?" she asked. "Yes? I'm Maria. I don't know if you remember me. I was crew on the Hope, the first transport ship." Kes's eyes widened. He hadn't seen Maria in 15 years. She had continued working in space transport, but had recently retired. "Maria, of course I remember. You sat with me. You hummed that song." Maria smiled, tears in her eyes. "I turned out okay," Kes said softly. "Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you." They talked for an hour, sharing stories. Maria told him about the other children she had helped transport. Most were doing well. A few had struggled, but survived. All of them were alive, living lives the galaxy had voted to take from them. "Do you ever regret it?" Kes asked. "Volunteering for the rescue? You gave up years of your career. It must have been hard." Maria looked out at the memorial, at all the names of the dead and the survivors. "Not once," she said firmly. "Not for one single second. It was the most important thing I ever did." Later that day, Kes stood alone at the memorial as the sun set over Tarsus 9. His family had returned to the ship, but he wanted a few more minutes. He thought about the path his life had taken, from orphan to family member, from traumatized child to confident adult, from someone whose life was measured worthless to someone who helped others find worth. He thought about Ambassador Park, retired now but still a legend. About Captain Lee, who had continued rescue operations and saved thousands more lives. About Dr. Chen, who had revolutionized xenopediatric medicine. About all the families who had opened their homes and hearts. Most of all, he thought about Mr. and Mrs. Kim. They could have spent their retirement in peace. Instead, they chose to raise a traumatized alien child. They taught him that family isn't about biology, it's about choice and love, and showing up every day even when it's hard. A message notification appeared on Kes's device. It was from the Coalition for Sentient Dignity. They wanted him to speak at their annual conference about building cross-species communities. He accepted immediately. The galaxy had changed so much in 20 years. The old council had reformed into the Coalition, with new values and new priorities. Euthanasia of dependent populations had been banned across most of civilized space. Rescue operations were standard practice now. Species competed to demonstrate their compassion rather than their efficiency. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts and problems. Some species resisted change. Some situations still had no good solutions. But the fundamental question had shifted. Instead of asking, "Can we afford to help?" civilizations now asked, "How can we afford not to?" Kes returned to the ship and found his daughter asleep in Mr. Kim's arms. His grandfather was singing softly in Korean. the same lullabies he had sung to Kess 2 decades ago. "She's growing so fast," Mr. Kim said. "Like you did. One day she was a baby. The next she's running around giving everyone orders." Kess laughed and carefully took his daughter. She stirred but didn't wake. Comfortable and safe. "Thank you, grandfather," Kess said. "For everything. For choosing me when the galaxy said I wasn't worth choosing." Mr. Kim's eyes grew wet. "We didn't choose you because of what you could become. We chose you because of what you already were. A child who deserved love. That you became this amazing person is just a bonus." The ship lifted off from Tarsus 9, carrying families back to their homes across the galaxy. Kess looked out the viewport at the memorial shrinking below. 10,000 names. 10,000 lives. 10,000 futures that almost weren't. He held his sleeping daughter closer and thought about the legacy he would leave her. She would grow up in a galaxy that remembered the lesson of Tarsus 9. That understood civilization wasn't about technology or wealth or power. It was about choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. About protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. About believing that every life had value, even when that belief came at a cost. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way, taught by 10,000 orphans and the humans who refused to let them die. 20 years ago, the Galactic Council had voted. They chose efficiency over compassion, logic over morality, easy calculation over hard sacrifice. Humanity had looked at that vote and said 3 simple words that changed everything. "We'll take them all." And the galaxy would never be the same again. Kess smiled as his daughter snuggled closer to him. She would never know the terror of being deemed disposable. She would grow up in a civilization that had learned to measure worth differently. All because humanity had dared to care when caring was difficult. All because 10,000 children were given a chance to live. All because someone had finally said, "This is what civilization looks like."